I don't know how to go to the horizontal. Hi guys. Okay, let's see if I can get myself to the other direction. Okay, well, I guess I'm stuck with having the phone this way. I can't have it the other way for some reason. Hi. Hi. Let's see if I can switch the direction of the phone. Okay, apparently not. Apparently I can't be in this direction. If I do it like this. No. No, I'm upside down. Oh no. Okay, well. Oh, all right. Well, I'm trying to charge my phone at the same time, which like doesn't work. Usually I've been able to do this in a horizontal view, but I can't do it this time around. I think that they changed something on YouTube. I hope it's okay now. How am I doing? I'm doing well. I'm just trying to figure out this live thing. For some reason, they're telling me that I have to change something in my settings, but I won't get it. So we'll have to accept that we're going to be in a vertical view today. Okay. And I've put on some autumn rain sound. I hope that it doesn't cover my voice. It's mostly because I'm just chilling at home. I guess that I'll... There we go. Okay. Right. Good. And so this INFP live is going to be about... You don't hear any rain at all? Well, I don't know if that's good or not. I don't know. Do you hear rain now? So I'm talking about INFPs and if they're ancient or if they're babies. Yeah, INFPs are baby elders, Alexander Washman. So anyway, I want to say hello to everybody who's writing. Alexander Washman, Schumann, Stage 4 Internet Troll. Hi, welcome. I like... this is like influenced by Frank James. Hi, Chanduchor. So Frank James, he usually doesn't really understand INFPs, but here he did a ranking of how old the INFPs are, if the INFPs are middle-aged or teenagers, teens, whatever. And he came up with, he had to cut the INFP paper in half and put half of the paper on ancient and half of the paper on baby, because he couldn't decide. And it kind of is like that, being an INFP. It's kind of like you go around the world, and when you're a kid, you're like way too wise beyond your years, and then when you're an adult, then you're like, people are like, wow, you retained your childlike innocence or youthfulness or whatever it is. Because we have all of that imagination, all of that's like that way of viewing the world. Oh, wait. Someone once told me I was like a 300-year-old child, lol. And I can't speak Chinese, so I don't know. I guess that it's Mandarin. But hi, whoever wrote that. And true, we are like 300-year-old children. Then Chandra Chor said, I think age is a variable for us INFPs. What do you mean that it's a variable? You mean that it varies? Or do you mean that it's like x equals y plus z or something? I don't know maths, so I'm sorry if I said something technically incorrect. I watched a video from Frank, and while I was watching, I was like, oh, we INFPs, we are both just cut paper in half, and it was exactly what he ended up doing. Yeah, I was waiting for the INFP to come up in his video because I knew that he'd have a trouble. Like he set the INFP paper to the side, like away from all the other types papers during like most of the video because he couldn't decide where to put us. And I knew that he'd have a hard time and he couldn't choose. Chandu says, yeah, it varies depending on the specific experience. Yeah, obviously. We are all different people. So some people will be really wise and some people will be pretty innocent or different levels of maturity, you know. You're right, it's pronounced Yu Meng. Most people assume it's Japanese and hi. Oh, so hello, Yu Meng. That's good that I know how to say your name, I guess. Yeah, so I guess it's very variable, but at the same time you can be both at the same time. You can be ancient and really young at the same time. And I like how Frank James put it, that it was like the circle of life, that you end up right where you started because life is cyclical. I found that kind of sums it up. We're neither super old or super young. We're everything at the same time. So I found that was really interesting. Oh, Schumann. If I remember correctly, INTP was just below ISTJ in mental age. Would have classified me almost as a child, but it's probably an understanding of things that makes me supposedly so ancient. Okay, wasn't the ISTJ like old age or something, or middle-aged? So INTP would also be that? Because the ISTJ is like midi-adult, even when they when they plop out, they're already like filling text forms. So I guess the INTP was slightly younger than the ISTJ. But pretty responsible people, I guess. I don't remember where the INTP was in that video, to be honest. Okay, guys. I'm still kind of annoyed at the fact that that I'm in vertical position because I didn't want to have it this way, but okay. It's still light outside here, but it's getting dark. So, I mean, it's great cozy corner. So I'm doing my little grandma things, such as my crocheting. So here's like my granny square. I realized, unfortunately, a little bit too late that the purple is. I don't have enough purple to finish the round on my granny square. But yeah, I have like some grandma hobbies, you know. I like being at home and cozy and not go to the club or whatever. So that's kind of what makes us old, I guess. Alexander says, personally, I can say I have this childlike wonder and feel like the world is there to be explored. And at the same time, I'm so aware of how imperfect the world is and how there's so much suffering. Then I wonder how one could go about healing humanity. Yeah, no, really. Like, the childlike wonder thing really is there. So maybe that is both aspects, the childlike aspect and the elderly, more serious aspect. Yes, yes. So like you have both at the same time. And I mean, I'm sure that we all have this, but I think that with INFPs, it's such a huge span in the oldness, like the ancient wisdom, and then like the baby, the baby wonder at the world. And maybe the wisest people are act kind of like how children do, like seeing the world for the first time, I guess. When I was little, people would always think, oh, well, she's so mature, blah, blah, blah. Then I realized like I was way too sheltered, and so I didn't really have an idea of what was going on in the world. So I realized, oh, wow, I'm actually very young. But I don't know. Let's see. I don't really have a plan for this live. I was at my ISFJ friend's house yesterday, and it taxed a little bit on my energy because there was so much I had to say. Sorry for the typos. Yeah, no problem. And we watched The Sixth Sense, which is a horror story, a horror movie from the 90s, where there's a lot of emphasis on like the old, the new, like the people who are dying, and the little kids can see dead people, basically. And he's wise beyond his years, but he's kind of haunted by that. And he has to take so much responsibility, even though he's so small. And yeah, so what happened is my ISFJ friend, he lost his father when he was 18, and that's approximately when I started knowing him, when I met him. Yeah, Sixth Sense. But it really hit him. And so we sometimes watch movies together, but usually we try to stick to like comedy and that kind of thing. But because it's nearing Halloween, we thought that we'd watch something else. Oh, Schumann, you've seen it. Well, it really hit my ISFJ friend, and I was just, when the movie was ending, I said, "Oh wow, this was a cool movie. It wasn't just horror. It was like a drama, and it was pretty interesting movie as well." And then I saw that my ISFJ friend was like tearing up, and he he tore up really, really, really bad. And I hadn't seen him this bad in quite a long time, because we met 10 years ago. And so 10 years ago, it was still pretty like fresh in his mind for him. But this movie somehow reminded him of like, is his dad still here, you know, in his heart, or looking at him from heaven, that kind of thing. And since the Sixth Sense is a little bit about ghosts, right? Ghosts that aren't at peace. Like, he hopes that his dad is at peace, you know? And so he broke down really, really, really bad. And I didn't really know what to do, but what I could do was hug him and just like shush him, you know? It was a pretty deep experience. And he's been bottling up so much emotion, but I was like, somehow, you know, like, this all made me see like the bigger picture of things, and I was completely fine with it. Like, my friend was like on the floor sobbing, and it's like, in a way, it's like, because you've looked at all these possibilities as an INFP, and you've seen the patterns, and you've seen it all, it's like you've seen it all. So it's like, it doesn't faze you when emotions are involved. Like, it's like I've already prepared for this scenario. I already know what to do in some strange way. So it didn't actually faze me that much. I was just there, like, for him, and then it was like a little bit awkward because, like, you know, what do you do after falling apart so completely? But I think that we INFPs are pretty good at leaving people some space and stuff. So I left them some space, and I like made some tea and everything. But yeah, I think that in some weird way we have some wisdom that can be like 100-year-old person, you know? Because he was like, why am I breaking down now? It's been 11 years, he said. And I said, well, sometimes these things come very strangely out, you know? It's also, the fact is, I actually had a dream about my ISFJ friend a few days ago, where I was like reliving a memory from when I first met him. And he was telling me about his dad. So I don't really know, like, somehow we have this sixth sense of like what is affecting certain people at the moment. I can't explain it. I mean, it's not like an eye vision, but it's like somehow we know certain things that are affecting the people that we love in real time without actually having them tell us. So somehow I can't explain why, but I knew that this was a sensitive period for him. And it wasn't because he had an anniversary of his father's death or anything like that, because his anniversary is like in June, which is completely different period of the year, you know? But yeah, so in that sense, I feel like I'm really old, you know, like I've seen so much, and so I know. But at the same time, it's like I'm still just a perpetual lost kid in this all this stuff. I do see things in a new light, and I do sometimes act like a child because acting like an adult is boring. Or acting like adult, whatever adult means. Like, I like certain children's media. I like certain like doing certain childish things. Like I like stuffed animals, and I like looking at small details. Like I like watching the leaves fall in autumn and just like sitting there and watching them fall around me, and look at them in awe. I like all of these like little fun things that the universe brings us, and that is discounted by some types as like childish behavior, but it's actually just it's not being innocent or naive, because we've been through a lot of things and we are experienced adults. It's just we like seeing different things. There was a time where I had these caterpillars that I wanted you guys to name, and I was watching these caterpillars really closely of like how do they move, and as if I'd never seen a caterpillar before, you know. I really like enjoying these parts of life. Okay, Mi Young asks me if I get along easily with kids. Now that is a kind of a tricky question, because yes, I do, but I think that kids get kind of confused around me because they think that I'm like an adult, but I'm not. Like they're like, oh, so you're not a kid, but you're not an adult. Like, what are you? You know, and I have like zero authority over kids, and I can play with them, you know, if we're in a play situation. But like often I meet kids as a doctor at this point, and so meeting them as a doctor is kind of like I'm supposed to have the authority and like over them. And so the parents expect me to interact with their kids in a certain manner, like an extra adult. And it's not like I can just do whatever I want. Also, certain kids scare me. I must admit that they scare me because some kids are pretty mean with other kids. And I've been bullied, so I know that kids are sometimes don't have like good judgment or like patience that adults have, and sometimes they've been taught their whole lives that like, oh, that person's weird, you know. And so since I've always been that weird person, it's kind of difficult because a lot of children see that weirdness and they'll tell you, you know, they'll tell you like, oh, you're weird, and I can sometimes take it personally, which I wish I didn't. You know, I would love to interact with kids as long as they don't like insult me, and unfortunately they do. So that's just part of growing up, I guess, you know. But I do have certain trouble, so it's not like I would want to be a primary school teacher or that kind of thing. So yeah, whatever. Sorry, my neighbor is doing something weird with the walls, and it really frustrates me. Okay, let's see. Do you enjoy music? Who doesn't? Of course I enjoy music. Do you enjoy music, DL? Naming the fat and smaller caterpillar was really fun. and it sparked my childishness, which is great. Oh yes, Schumann. Didn't you call one of them Roppy from like the German Pokemon, the caterpillar Pokemon? Sorry, I'm putting these earplugs in because I think that maybe this is what these earplugs are for. I'm not sure. Okay. INFPs are both and at once holding some depths of wisdom and seems to stem from an ancient place, experienced and found through a childlike curiosity about the world. Yeah, Brian, I couldn't have said it better than you did there. So kudos to you, Brian. Let's see if I can change the lighting here. Because the reason that I didn't have the lighting be good is because I thought that I would be horizontal and that I'd be able to charge my phone, but let's see. Okay. So I'm a little bit spooky here, but it feels like it fits the mood a little bit better, I think. Let's see if I can turn on another lamp and okay. I had the same experience. It was harder for me to learn to be an authority because they saw me as just a big kid, lol. But I got better at it. Yeah, no, exactly. It's not like I have a lot of experience with kids. I don't have a lot of experience with pets either, because I never grew up around pets. I did have a brother who was 9 years younger than me, so I kind of learned how to take care of kids when I was 10, but that was a long time ago. Sensitive to sounds is an INFP. Yeah, no, that's where INFPs can be mistaken for autism, because the sound sensitivity sucks. Okay. Do you guys have any questions? Okay, like about if I enjoy music? Yes, I do. I've not subscribed to Spotify these past months because I listen to YouTube videos in my earphones rather than listen to music at the moment, because I have so many like video essays that I have to go through that I don't have time to listen to music. I'm like, all my listening time is already used up. But I did buy tickets to see Hozier the 29th of November because my birthday is the 19th. So this is my birthday present to myself. Let's see. Are you often infantilized because of your childlike nature, says Alexander. Yes, I am. And that can be really bad. Especially when I was sexually harassed. It was kind of like I'm kind of seen as like the manic pixie dream girl, and a lot of men, like, they'll see you as just that, as just like a grown child, and they'll think that they know best and that they're the adults, when actually, like, you might be wiser than them, you might be smarter than them, but it doesn't matter because to them you're just a child. I know that I've been online, there are a lot of, especially men, I mean, I don't know because they're just behind a screen, but mostly men who think that I'm pretty stupid because I'm childlike. Um, People who think that, oh, I can't use my logic, so um, so I'm stupid, basically. Um, that I need so much help, like all this mansplaining. Yeah, Alexander, it's okay. I'm over it, but this is what I've tried to make my trauma video about, and I've put it on pause because I'm trying to explain it in a manner that isn't like too hurtful to these people, and also that kind of makes sense and that isn't too long. So it's difficult to talk about. But anyway, being childlike in that case really well hurt me, or like went to my disadvantage. Also, there's some kids when I was growing up, they thought that they were just like so mature because I was so childish, and yeah, they thought that I was naive about the world just because I was innocent. And maybe I was naive, but it was like that made me super uncool. Super uncool, like, oh, you're just still a baby, you know. I didn't know. There's a story where when I was little, I was in primary school. I would read books, like, you know, by having a finger under the text, you know, like you would read and have your finger and like go like this. And I did not know, and so I used my middle finger because my middle finger is longer, you know. Um, and I didn't know that it was wrong. So all these kids were like, "Oh, but you know what you did wrong." I was like, "How can you think that I don't know and then think that I know?" You know, like, how do you think that I'm being mean while at the same time think that I'm stupid? Like, all I was doing was reading a book, and I happened to use the wrong finger to read the book. It took me a while to figure that one out because people were like, "Well, you should know," you know, and like, I don't know. DL, interesting. I thought the same about autism and took the test and scored INFP. I find myself listening to my AirPods a lot at work. Yeah, no, I can't listen to music while I'm at work because I work with patients, and so it's like, and I dictate in a little dictaphone so that it writes down everything that I say. So having music isn't an option for me. But I have thought of having these little calmer earplugs because I can hear exactly everything, but it takes away the bad frequencies. So it's supposed to work that way. I'm not sure. Maybe it's just placebo. But I might have autism as well. But like at this point, I don't really care because I know that I'm an INFP. Brian says, I find the INFPs in my life, including myself, seemed old as children, but then in their later 20s started to become seen as young and remain young throughout life. Yeah, that's interesting. I think I was always so well behaved at school, and I would sit quietly and you know, also when I became a teen, I didn't cause a lot of trouble. I was pretty boring. I stayed home a lot and read books, and did not want to go to the club dancing like all these other young people. So a lot of people were like, "Oh, you're just a boring grandma," you know. People think that I'm really, really young, but also because I look really young. By the way, guys, I'm 27 years old, turning 28 in a few weeks. So I'm in my late 20s, but people still think that I'm under 18. And that leads to some interesting conversations. often when I go to a bar, they're like, are you even allowed in here? And I've even gone to a gay bar, and there'd be a guy in the bar, and he'd be like flirting with me because he'd be like, wow, like you don't look your age at all. And he'd compliment me about that. And like my gay guy friend standing next to me in line, he wouldn't talk to him at all. And I was like, ooh, you know, I just look really young. I don't know why. So be it. Kitty Lover says, hey, I'm new. Hi. Hi, Kitty Lover. Hi, Kitty. Let's go back to the questions here. Hey, yeah, hey. Always happy to see some new people. Let's go back here. So yes, I do relate to seeming younger now and being seen as old as a kid. But at the same time, I think that's like, sometimes people think that I'm like really acting like an old grandma, and I'm in my late 20s. And when I was a kid, sometimes people would think that I was a baby. So I think that we can be like every age at every age. That's just my life. I'm not sure about other INFPs though. Alexander says, yes, I relate. I also often experience infantilization and being treated like I am below others, especially authority figures like parents and teachers. Yeah, yeah. It does suck because like you feel like you have no power because you're not serious looking enough, or you're not professional looking enough, or whatever. I've had some teachers during medical school who thought that I was acting childish or not professional enough when I was meeting patients, because I would treat it a little bit like a game, and a lot of the patients join in on the game. They'll be like, oh, they'll know that this is kind of for my training, and so I'll be like, oh well, let's listen to your lungs now. Oh, that looks like, that sounds good. That sounds great. You like, and I'll joke. I'll say like, oh, you're fit for a fight, you know, or I'll say something like that, and I'll say these funny things, and it's not seen as professional, unfortunately. So, and yes, teachers would often think that I was like really wise and that I was hiding all of this wisdom underneath my quietness, which wasn't really quite true, to be honest. Schumann says, I'm usually not seen as naive, but I guess since I'm shy and keep to myself, others are more likely to infantilize me. Yeah, exactly. Because you're shy, then they're like, oh, you're just a kid, you know? But they can also mistake that quietness for being smart, being wise. So it's hard being quiet because people will just lay stuff on top of you. They'll put labels on you and like think that, oh, that you're snobbish, you're aloof. This is something that Psych Casserole was talking about. How INFPs are often labeled as aloof by strangers because they think that that I don't care about them, or that I think that I'm superior to them in some weird way. And that's not what I want to convey at all, you know, but that's how it is anyway. Let's see. Oh, DL says, congratulations. Yes, thank you. I'm turning 28 the 19th of November. So I'll be going to the Hozier concert the week after. And I have holidays from the 6th to the 12th, where I'll just basically take it easy and not do anything. So I'm glad. Let's see. Okay, Kitty Lover. Alexander says, I always felt like there is something wrong with me because of my childlike, weak nature. And that's why my parents infantilized me, because I just don't measure up. But I tell myself it is them and not me. Yeah, I think that parents in general like can't get over that their kids are not babies anymore. I think that this can be both for good parents and for bad parents. Um, but it is tough when they think that they can speak for you because they think that you are just a kid when you're an actual adult who can make their own decisions. Um, I've been really dependent on my parents, even though I have really good parents. Like they care about me and don't make fun of me. They do kind of sometimes think that I can't take care of myself, and I've trapped myself into that I depend on my parents a little bit too much. Now, since I've gone through all of this therapy and everything, I've kind of been able to detach myself from my parents and be more independent and self-reliant than ever before. So I'm pretty glad about that development because I can't be a child forever. Somebody like has to cut the umbilical cord at a certain time. So that's what I did in the past year, is that I don't take I don't I'm not as close to my parents, unfortunately, now that I've done this, but also I'm more immune to like their attempts of trying to manipulate me or control me. I can be on my own and safe and confident in that. But yeah, being childlike, it does come with a certain vulnerability, but it doesn't need to mean that you're weak. Sometimes you're really strong and you can be childlike and strong at the same time. It's not mutually exclusive. Oh, Kitty Lover put a little kitty in a box. Love that. Such a cute little picture. It's kind of like those, what was it called? Neko Atsume. I really loved that game back when it came out, with the little cats that you would take care of. Yeah. Okay, Mei Young says, lol, I think that's true. A lot depends on my mood and what age mindset I'm in. Yeah. Yeah, like sometimes I feel like I'm really like a child, and sometimes I'm really old. Oh wait, who is it who's sending all these little emojis? Thank you everybody for sending the little happy, funny faces, laughing faces. Whoever you are, you're awesome, but I don't know who it is. Woohoo, all of the emojis. Yay. Yay, party. Party emojis. Okay. Let's go back to the chat. That is exactly what I look for in a doctor, someone who can laugh with me. Yeah. I find it really funny. But you know, if I'm having like a older doctor sit in on my patient visits, then they're like you were acting so silly, you know, and that's like seen as bad when like the patient was completely in on it. I do have to be careful though, because some patients are like, you're not taking me seriously if I'm too lighthearted about it. But Schumann is already 28. It's actually pretty okay so far, nearing closer to 30. Yeah, true. Oh, hi, Super Cat. Oh, and Schumann says hi to you. It's me, Blue. Hi. Never seen you before. Analytical and logical when it comes to emotions. Yeah. I agree. I think that's why a lot of INFPs mistype as INTPs, because like we can be really analytical and logical when it comes to emotions. Yeah, I like how you guys are saying hi to each other in the comments. That's very sweet. Daddy's Uz. Sorry if I butcher your name. Hello, it's me. Hello, it's me. It's like the Adele song. Hello, it's me. Uh, Alexander Washman says, I now see the childlike nature more and more as something wonderful, but it took a while to get there. Yeah, sometimes I was like, oh, why can't I be like mature and serious like the other people? Like, why am I so weird? But then I'm like, well, a lot of patients do need that in my work. And a lot of people need that childlike nature in order to be able to like realize things about themselves. I know that helped me with my INFJ friend. Um, I think that my childlike nature was really refreshing for him. I think INFJs like feel like they're really ancient at all times. And INFPs, we can kind of go between the two worlds of like the old grandma down to like the baby, which gives them like a fresh view of the world, which can help their NI like hone in onto the right things. That is Uz says, what is your name? Oh, I'm Ingrid. Hi. I always start my videos with, hi, it's me, Ingrid INFP. And sometimes I'm like in my sleep and I'm like, you know, like I'll go through scripts of like how to talk in the world. And I'm like, uh, and like, you know, you'll come up with things like, oh, how can I help you with you today, you know? And it's like you're at home, but you're like doing these customer service kind of scripts. I'm like, I sometimes like think of like the scripts that I use at work. I'm like, oh, it's me, Ingrid, the doctor at the office. You know, when I call people, I'm like, hi, I'm Ingrid. I'm the doctor at this health clinic. How can I help you? You know, it's the fake SE stuff, FE stuff that really is kind of, you know, we're conditioned to be like that. Sam and Colby, hello. It's only old, okay? I don't know what you mean, but yes. Mi Young says, I think sometimes being childlike is a sign of being comfortable. I've done dangerous jobs, and the experienced people were always sillier because they knew what they were doing and were more at ease. Oh, that's pretty interesting. It's just the fact that I think that being a doctor is kind of like you're seen as like having a status of power. And so some patients, also because my name is Ingrid, I have a lot of older ladies are called Ingrid in this country, in Sweden. And most people have a grandma that's called Ingrid, but nobody in my generation is called that in Sweden. So when people get like the letter in their mailbox that says that, oh, you got the time at your doctor's office to Ingrid, insert last name, and they'll be expecting a middle-aged or older woman to meet them, and then they meet me and they're like, where's my doctor? And I'll be like, I'm your doctor today. Especially like, you know, older ladies or older men, especially older men. They'll be like, they'll think that I'm the nurse, obviously, because I'm a girl and I'm young. I'm about the youngest that you can be in this profession, because it takes a long time to become a doctor. But it is interesting that experienced people feel more confident to be silly, and that are like, it doesn't compromise their situation. So I think that that's interesting. Okay, so yeah, interesting, Miyoung. Daddy says, I'm a girl and my name is Aliza. Are you a Muslim? Sorry? No, I am not a Muslim. And I live in Sweden, which has a lot of Muslim immigrants, but I am not Muslim, no. I'll tell you straight up that I am gay, and if you do not accept that, I do not accept those kinds of comments on my channel. Unfortunately, there have been a lot of Muslim people who have gone to my channel just to tell me that I'm an aberration, that I'm, well, this place is open for people of all religions as long as they are respectful to me and to other people on the channel. Okay, so welcome, Eliza, or Eliza, I don't know how to say it. That is us. So you're welcome. I do really admire like Muslim women. They're always so poised. I don't know what it is. I have a lot of Muslim friends. Some of them I've been through medical school with, and some of them I've met over the course of my life at my job. And like a lot of my patients are Muslim women, and they're so responsible, so poised, always in my doctor's meetings. And I really admire that about them. Not to generalize about certain groups of people, but I only have positive things to say. The only thing that I find negative is if people use their religion to attack me or to say that I'm an aberration against God, a God that I myself do not believe in. Sorry for that old rant. Okay. Mei Young says, haha, they expected an old doctor because of the name. Yes, they do. They do. Wait, I skipped Alexander. In our capitalist society, you are conditioned to be combative and need to be tough to come up on top. How do you feel about that? Oh, well, that sucks. I hate that. I hate the competition. I hate the combat, like that you have to fight your way through. Like, can't we live in a place that is peaceful and happy rather than like bad? That kind of sucks, you know. I need to plug in my phone. Wait. It's so stupid because like the plug to charge my phone is at the bottom of my phone, and so it's not going to be very stable. Okay. No, so yes, I hate capitalism. Okay. That's that. Brian says, Sweden's a place I really want to travel. Seems like an INFP dreamland. Yes, it is. It is. It's a good place to be an INFP. Because you're introverted, you're a feeler. But I do think that there's a certain kind of normative thing about it, that everybody is supposed to be equal, which true, but it's to the point where you're not allowed to express your individuality in the way that you might like to, even though it's a very INFP friendly place. I would recommend, if anybody wants to come to Sweden, hit me up. I'll see what I can do if we can meet up. Okay. And nobody wants to come to Sweden because it's so cold. But it truly is a good place. There are colder places, like, you know, some places in the northern US have terrible weather. Like, they'll have much more snow because it's a continental climate in the US. While in Sweden, it's kind of mitigated by the sea that surrounds it. So it's not like these extreme temperatures in the same way that like Russia might have, or that kind of thing. So it's not that cold. But if you come in winter, then yes, it will be minus 10, 12 degrees, and that's like the norm. But it's a nice place to be in the summer. But yes, let's see. So Brian, come to Sweden. I'll meet up with you. It's Me Blue says, I felt weird being an INFP because I'm also an Enneagram 9 wing 8. Maybe these are the stereotypes of INFPs being shy and emotional and all that. I am those things at heart, but still hold my ground if needed. Yes, that's good because we need to be good at boundaries as an INFP. Otherwise, we are just like stomped on and stuff. That's an interesting Enneagram for an INFP. I'm an INFP 6 wing 7, so that's also an interesting kind of thing. The only thing is that being an INFP 6 really makes me neurotic and anxious and stuff. But the 7 wing does make me really fun-loving and wanting to test out new things and that kind of thing. And it makes me a really good, loyal friend. I also am really duty-bound by being a 6, which makes me seem like an SJ, but I'm not. I do envy the Enneagram 9s, but that's because I'm a 6, and 6s, when they are at their most healthy, they look like 9s. They integrate towards 9. So it's because I'm just tired of all my anxiety, you know? I want to be able to be zen and cool cats like 9s are, but unfortunately I'm not. Okay. I've been wondering if I'm an INFP 4 wing 5 or whatever, but I think I'm still a 6 actually. But it's good that you stand your ground, because we need that. Cats and Pigs Horde. Chorazia. That's a cool name. Cats and Pigs Horde. How INFPs react to seeing conflicts and horrendous incidents they observe. Do they feel overwhelmed by it, or just take it in mind that they can never do things about it? Being an INFJ, I feel a need to help them, either by financially donating or providing anything that could be helpful to them. Okay. First of all, make sure that your INFP is okay, like, wants that kind of help. Because I noticed that INFJs, like, they sometimes want to help people even though they don't want to be helped. Your friend, your INFP friends might think that you're imposing on them if you try to help them behind their back. Like, just be honest with us. Say, oh, I see that you're struggling. Do you need some help? I can provide some help if you want to. But if they say no, it's okay. Just respect them with that. Because I've had some trouble with a certain INFJ about that, is that INFJs, they'll want to help, but then they'll feel like they're being taken advantage of, but they don't really understand that. So then they'll help the INFP in many different ways that the INFP maybe doesn't always notice. And then the INFJ becomes resentful. And I same thing with ISFJs. Like, the ISFJs will do all of these things for you, and then they'll be resentful. And it's like, I did not ask for you to do these things. Okay. But yes, I do feel very overwhelmed by all of the conflicts in the world. I mean, I don't watch the news. I have enough seeing trauma from my friends and my job as a doctor. I meet people who tell me very deep, dark secrets about, like, being abused as children, about being sexually harassed, about going through terrible divorces that really affect their health. I see all sorts of suffering in the world, and I don't get into, like, you know, the Palestine-Israel conflict. I have my stance, and I'm firmly pro-Palestine. Even though my cousins are Jewish, but they don't support the Israeli government and such. we can look at these things and such, but we feel so emotionally invested in everything that we have to take a step back and like remove ourselves from these sources of news sometimes because it becomes too much. We can't do anything about it, and we know that. But we try sometimes, like by donating or that kind of thing. But I don't want anybody donating to me unless they really want to. I do have a Ko-fi or whatever, that is basically just ko-fi.com /RajeshRaven. And I do encourage people to donate if they feel like this content helps them, and that they want to support me. But I don't want people, my friends, going behind my back and like trying to donate money to me or that kind of thing. But you can provide help just by being there, just by being a listening ear. And if you feel that it is too much on you, that they're dumping a lot of like heavy things on you, say to them, this is too much. I need to take a step back. Okay, it's not that I don't like you or that I think that you're annoying. I just feel like I have a hard time dealing with these heavy things that you're telling me. Maybe we could take this another day, or like seek professional help, that kind of thing. Because it's easy for INFJs to decide that they're like the therapists for the whole world, which isn't true. Okay, you guys deserve as much help as we do. Okay. It's Me Blue says meatballs. Yes, I do love meatballs. I actually ate meatballs today. Okay, a typical Swedish person, right? Okay, I feel like my glasses are like giving you a glare, so I'm taking this off. I look really tired, and that's because I am. I had to get up at like 5 in the morning to go to a town that's 2 hours away for a course, and it was a course about functional medicine, which was really, really interesting. It was really inspiring doctor there. Let's see. Brian, it's cold where I live, so it wouldn't bother me. Well, great, Brian. Come. Come to Stockholm. I don't live in Stockholm, but I live pretty near Stockholm. I'm not going to say where, but you know, those who know, you know. Alexander says, Sweden sounds interesting. Do you have an example where it shows you can't express your individuality in Sweden? Well, I have doctors' meetings at my work, and if there's no consensus, and if you say like your voice is against everybody else's voice, then it's like looked down upon. It's not a great example because, you know, but I think that applies to a lot of meetings in Sweden. People don't want to put anybody else down, and they'll be pretty passive aggressive about things. But if you voice an opinion that is like not the consensus, like it will hurt some people. Oh, another film that I watched with my ISFJ friend this weekend was The Square, which I really recommend seeing, but it is really disturbing. But it's kind of, it's filmed in Sweden and it's won multiple awards, and it's filmed in Stockholm. And it's about, well, the difference between poverty, like the poverty and super rich people, and how super rich people won't give money to like homeless people and that kind of thing. That's pretty universal thing in different countries, that the ultra rich will like, but like if somebody is slightly disruptive, that will not go well with how the Swedish system is built. Like you have to really do what the crowd decides democratically together. And if you say like something different, that's like jarring, and it's like, oh, this person is just out there to complain, or this person is out to like be provocative. This doesn't apply to style of dress or anything like that. It's more about like in a meeting situation, or politically, or that kind of thing. So yes, that's where I feel like individuality, but it has landed Sweden in some. Sometimes Sweden is really for freedom of speech, too much so, because there was a guy who burnt the Quran in front of a mosque or an embassy, I forget, and he was allowed to do that because freedom of speech, but that led to a lot of problem internationally for Sweden, because the people in Muslim countries, like Turkey, Sweden just joined NATO, and Turkey doesn't want Sweden to join NATO because apparently Sweden was against this, was for burning of the Quran, which I don't know. I don't really have a stance about this, because I understand that freedom of speech, but at the same time, it's like very, very disrespectful. So I don't know what my stance on the issue is. Alexander says, Sweden sounds interesting. Do you have an... Oh, sorry, I just read that. Supercat says, I think that vulnerability or sensitivity or being open about emotions is often perceived as childlike, and it can be annoying to be treated like a child because of it. Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, so many people have seen me cry, and often it's not of my own volition. It's because I got into a meltdown, like, but it's seen like being childlike, like you can't master and push down all of your emotions like other adults can. I can see this particularly be a problem for people who are men in the society, because INFP men have the hardest, I think. INFP men must, they must bottle up all of these emotions in order to be seen as a real man or whatever, rather than just like a feminized version of a person, which is wrong, but that's how it is. Young says, I have trouble accepting help because I always assume it will be used as leverage against me later. I know it's not healthy, but it's how I feel. Yeah, it's true. I've gotten much better at accepting help now through my burnout, because I'm burnt out from my job. And right now I work only 75% until the 5th of November, when I go on holiday. So I've gotten much better at, if somebody says, can I help? Then I'm like, oh yeah, you can help me with this, rather than just be like, no, I'm fine. Well, because I'm not fine. Okay. And also like accepting help. Sometimes what helped me was to see that sometimes your relationships with other people can get better if you accept their help. Okay, so sometimes you're not being a burden by accepting help. You are actually trusting that the other person sees it as a sign of trust that you accept their help. Obviously, you have to be pretty careful about whose advice you take, but oh yeah, lots of love, heart. Love all of the hearts. So Sweden has a strong FE culture. I don't know if it's FE. It could be seen as that. I think that it's like mostly an ISTJ culture, I think that it's mostly TE culture that is kind of uniformizing. But it could be an ISFJ culture, I guess, as well, maybe. I'd put SI as number one, though. But, you know, saying a country or culture is a certain personality type is kind of a wrong way to put it. But let's see. Oh, I've been going for about an hour now. Let's see. So I'm not sure about that, Brian, but you are still welcome to Sweden, even if the FE culture sucks. Lars Drakblod, hello. I like seeing, right, I think that you're a fellow Swedish person. INFP man here, yes. Need to cry, not allowed to. That sucks. Being sensitive and empathetic, aka soft, makes me lose respect from both men and women. Yeah, it sucks. Sensitive and empathetic and... Oh, Skåne! Woo! I did my AT-tjänst. I did my internship in Skåne. So I love that. I grew up in the French Alps, so I'm kind of hitting two like stones, two birds with one stone, because Alexander says, have you been to France? Yes, I grew up in France. I grew up in the French Alps. And when I was 18, when I was going to go to university, I jumped out of French medical school to go to Swedish medical school. And yeah, I don't regret it. Being in Sweden is much better for INFPs, because France is a little bit of a more extroverted culture, especially in the south. Oh, you're medicine techniker in Malmö. Oh, that's nice. I haven't actually been to Malmö sjukhus, but I did my AT in Kristianstad. I do not have the Skåne accent, though, so that sucks. It took me a while to get used to the dialects in the south of Sweden, because it's pretty different from how it is here. But I got used to it, and I started to really understand what people said. But it was difficult at first. So yes, it is hard being a man in a manly INFP in Sweden, but it's hard being a manly INFP anywhere else. I do think that Sweden accepts introversion much more than, say, the US, and even France. France is a lot more of a combative kind of culture, where a lot of schooling and stuff is about competition with each other. Like it would be severely graded and you would be ranked and all these kinds of non-INFP friendly things. Things that foster competition rather than cooperation. Also, living in France is much more difficult of a life than living in Sweden. In Sweden, you have a lot more of the social structures, and it's different. When you call like customer service, is much better in Sweden than in France. In France, you call someplace and they'll shout at you. Well, in Sweden, it's like, oh, how can I help you? You know, rather that. Stop, beautiful. Ghost Rider 01T. Are you calling me beautiful? I don't know. I wish I could see you, but I guess that you're a ghost, so. Or you're a ghost rider. I don't know if I can see ghosts, but It'd be interesting to see how you came up with that username. But Lars Drakblod has a pretty cool username, like a dragon blood. We have a lot of supernatural beings here. We got a ghost, we got a dragon. Do we have any other people who are who have funny usernames? We have the horde of cats and pigs, right? Which is a pretty funny name. Mei Young says, that's a really good point. I never considered how accepting help sends a positive message of trust. I always thought of it as me failing to be independent. Yeah, that's where also a thing about yes, we were built as humans to rely on each other. Okay, we are social creatures. I mean, everybody's heard this, but yes, and a lot of people, if they ask for if they could help, it's not because they don't want. I mean, and that doesn't mean that you're being a burden on them by saying yes to what they have so readily like presented to you. If they say something, it means that they want to follow through with helping you. So yeah, it's not failing to be independent. We don't need to be independent. But I think that that's something that in Sweden is a lot of it's an individualistic culture, and I think that being individualistic is not wrong. I mean, we are INFPs, so introversion is really it's a core part of who we are, and we do see the individuals with RFI. That's a lot of corporations and states don't see. But independence, sometimes being independent can, for example, old people in Sweden, if you show them, like, if you leave your seat to them on the bus, you might get a bad reaction. Like, the old people will seldom say, oh, thank you so much for your help, or just like take the seat quietly. They'll be like, oh no, it's okay, I don't need any help. And it's like, you're walking with a cane and this bus is pretty jiggly. Maybe sit down before you fall over. But a lot of old Swedish people do not accept any help, and it can lead to some problems. For example, health-wise, like if they fall, they don't want to get any sort of help. And also, a lot of times their families do not talk to them. A lot of 18-year-olds in Sweden are like kicked out of the house because they're supposed to be like on their own now, which kind of shocked me because when I lived in France, a lot of people stayed home with their parents until they were like 22, 23. You know, it wasn't like that the date you turn 18, suddenly like your brain is smart enough to be able to handle everything on your own. So I kind of feel sorry for a lot of Swedish kids because they're kind of coddled as kids, but then it's like suddenly you're on your own, and it's like, what? Like, where does that cultural thing come from? You know, I don't know. Alexander says, so you'd say the stereotypes of French being rude and arrogant are true? I might believe Blu-ray Star said. Blu-ray? Starseed. Oh, Starseeds. Yeah. Yeah, like Indigo Children, that kind of thing. Blu-ray isn't that the kind of DVD? French people aren't rude or arrogant. It's more that they're cynical. I think that they're cynical. They've seen that life is tough, and they're not being coddled. They see life is tough, and so they're going to be tougher, you know. And arrogant yes, maybe in terms of how tourists act. Because like if an American comes by and talks really loudly, which they do, and French people will not stand for that, you know. But yes, French people are they're more verbal than like Swedish people, that's for sure. Then being rude, it's the customer service that is rude. People between themselves are not more rude than anywhere else. It's just, yeah. And a lot of Americans, when they go to French restaurants, they think that the waiters are rude, which the difference is in the US, servers are like, they're paid to be super, super duper friendly, which is very disconcerting for a European tourist. Because you go there and it's like, hi, I'm Susan, and I'll be taking your order for today. And I'll be like, what? I don't care what your name is, and I don't want to take up space. So I don't, like, just take my order and serve me, and then like leave me alone, because I don't want extra social interaction. And like people at the cashier in the US will be like, oh, like, how are you doing? And I'll be like, we're strangers. Why are you asking me how I'm doing? So in Sweden, it's not all like that. And France is a little bit in the in-between zone. Like in France, it's really important to be polite. It's important to say bonjour when you meet somebody, and to say the correct bonjour, okay? You have to say bonsoir when it's the evening, and the evening is only after a certain time of the day, which I don't know when it is. You say bonne journée if it's any other time of the day, but you never say you never say good morning, because that doesn't exist. And also the vous versus tu is a whole thing. Like, you know, you have to call the right people vous and the right people tu. And if you're not growing up in that, then you will be perceived as rude. And French people are kind of prideful about that, because they'll be like, oh, well, you know, we have such a sophisticated society. But it's like, well, it's not something that you can teach. And so people have a hard time integrating in France. My mom, she's lived in France for 25 years by now. And people still think that she's on holiday in France because of her accent. And a lot of French people won't try to understand her accent, so it really sucks. But yeah. So yes and no. French people can be rude and arrogant. But it's actually because they are so interested in being polite and humble. So, I don't know. Humbleness is a big thing in Swedish culture. Like, you have to be humble, you know? If you're the best in your class, like, don't brag about it. You're not allowed to have more bragging rights than anybody else. So, Lars says, Drakblod is my real last name. The only one in the world. On the topic of being special outsider and embracing it. Did you choose your last name? I'm really jealous of you, Lars. I wish I had such a last name. I have a pretty unusual last name for a Swedish person, but it is still a very, like, understandable last name. You know, a very common Swedish last name would be Johansson or Svensson, like these son names. And then there are those that describe like a landscape, like Bergström is like mountain stream, or Lindström, which is a linden tree stream, or whatever else. Strindberg, which I don't know what the Strind means, but berg is a mountain. Forslund, which is a stream and a field, you know. And so my name is kind of on the common, in the common construction, but the construction is kind of like the actual content inside the construction is a little bit different. So Drakblod could be a really it sounds very Swedish because you're combining two words into one, like a descriptive kind of patronym or whatever. Oh, Lars says, yes, I changed it in 2010 when I, because of his toxic ESTJ dad. Okay. Well, it is a very cool name that you chose. So I admire it. I like it. Mei Young says, I grew up in the US, which I think is where I got the individualist mindset, but I moved back to Asia and I learned to appreciate cooperative culture a lot more. It's interesting, different perspectives. Yes, I really do like it. I do feel though that I belong in Sweden more than I belonged in France, because I don't actually have any French blood. I'm actually, my mom is American, my dad is Swedish, so I actually never really was French. I don't have a French nationality. I only have Swedish and American. So, but I did live the first like 18 years of my life in Sweden. Except, well, I was born in Sweden, but I lived in France from age 2 to 18. So yeah. Okay. Did you grow up bilingual, multilingual? Yes, I grew up with 3 languages, so it took me a while to start speaking in the way that other people spoke. My first words were in Swedish, and my mom is American, and I was going to a French kindergarten. But the kindergarten teachers thought that I did not know French because I was pretty much mute during my when I was at school. I never wanted to talk to anybody. So they wrote on my report card that I did not know French. And my mom was like, what? She knows French. So you spoke Swedish and English at home? Yes. So I spoke Swedish with my dad and English with my mom. And in school, I spoke French. And then later on, I also spoke English at school because I went to an international, a school with an international section. And I did have we had a little Swedish association where I learned a little bit of Swedish. Not a lot, but a little bit. So yeah, but as I grew older, and then I got my brother when I was 9, we realized that it was difficult because my brother, he feels very French because he went to, he's still in France, and he would start speaking to my dad in French, and my dad would reply in French, and so it would be a little bit confusing, you know. So it kind of messed up the whole system because my brother was not as interested in learning Swedish either. So yeah. So it's kind of a mix when we talk at home. But I don't speak French very much, so I have started to lose my French, which is kind of unfortunate. But at the same time, like, I won't forget it completely, and I don't think that it really matters because I'm not planning on living in France anytime soon. I'm pretty happy where I'm now. But yeah. But my first sentence was McDonald's har hands, which shows how much I love McDonald's, right? And let's see. So McDonald's is the same in every language. Har means has in Swedish, and hams is hamburgers, I guess, in English. And I would speak what I called Japolonian, because I had created my own imaginary land called Japolonia, which I guess was like a mix between Japan, Poland, and some other some country that's was non-existent, and so I said, oh well, I speak Japolonian, which is basically a mix of 3 languages. So yeah. Let's see. I'm kind of messed up because like the chat and the phone is not the same as the chat in the computer, but I think that it's because I have live chat on here and I have top chat on here, and it's like I don't know how to change it. Japan, Poland, Estonia. I don't think I knew about Estonia when I was that young. My brother was really into maps when he grew up, but this was before I was born. I had this map that I'd gotten from some McDonald's. Again, McDonald's. I had a McDonald's that was between, because I went to this special, like this school that had an English section. We had to walk quite far to go to that school. So my dad would drive me there, or I would take the bus with my mom. And then when I came back home, my dad wouldn't be finished from work. So my mom, since she was a stay-at-home mom, she would either take the bus with me or we would walk all the way home. And on the way home, like my legs would get tired and I would be hungry. And so there was a McDonald's that was like halfway point between my school and home. So I got pretty familiar with McDonald's and their Happy Meals. And I got and there was, I don't know, like I got some kind of toy, like an egg or something that had different adventurer things. And so one of them was a map, like a fake map of a fake place. It vaguely resembled France, okay, this map. But I said that this is the map of Japolonia, okay? And I had 2 imaginary friends, and their names were Kate and Key. Okay, I don't know why she was named Key, but I thought that's, they were twins, okay, these 2 girls, and they were slightly older than me, like 2 older sisters to me, because I grew up with no siblings until I was age 9 when I had my little brother. So I was pretty lonely and didn't have a lot of friends, and so I created those 2 imaginary friends. We would go on adventures in Japolonia. Your idea of Japolonian reminded me of Tolkien, who created his own language just for his own imaginary land. Interesting linguistic experiments. Yeah, I also had like a spell book that was also, it wasn't from McDonald's, it was from another fast food chain that was called Quick, that also gave out some kind of like Happy Meal. Where I got this little notebook, and inside this notebook I wrote down spells, okay, like spells that you could use in Japolonian, and like, so the spells would be like a mix of different languages, and I don't remember what the names of the spells were, but they would put I would have like a mix between two words, and that would be the spell. Two words in different languages, and that would be a spell that would do certain things. It's also around the time I got into Harry Potter, and so that book also had like Harry Potter spells like Expelliarmus and Accio and all these. So yeah, the spell book was like kind of like an adventurer's guide for Japlonia, but it was written on really shitty paper. Like it was written on like this really thin paper that was given from this notebook on McDonald's. I also like my room was a mess because we already had a hoarder house then, so we had really big rooms, and I had a huge room. But it was like it had so many things, so I would climb on top of these like different sofas and stuff, and I had this what I call the secret corner, which was where I kept all of my Japlonia stuff, and it was just like a little place where I could like squeeze between like certain kinds of furniture, and my mom knew that like she wasn't supposed to like disturb me when I was in the secret corner. I always envied these kids who would have like a fort or that kind of thing in movies. I always found that to be super exciting. So yeah, I do love linguistics. I actually told my psychologist this week. He was asking me like, why did you decide to become a doctor? You don't seem like the type to become a doctor. And he said like, have you ever considered other kinds of paths? I was like, yes, I've considered tons of paths. I wanted to study linguistics. I just found it so exciting because I find it so interesting, the etymology of words and all sorts of things. I like how different cultures have different words for different things, and some cultures have words for things that other places don't, and that like changes your brain structure. Like if you have a word for something, that means that you can conceptualize it in your head, such as INFP. INFP is a concept that if we didn't have that word, that acronym, if we didn't have that, then we wouldn't be able to conceptualize it. You know, it's really interesting. I just find language to be so interesting. I'm not that interested in learning new languages because I want to learn them all, but I can't realistically. I know a little bit of Spanish. I know a little bit of Italian. Swedish people can in general understand Norwegian people, not really Danish people. Some people in Sweden can't even really understand the people who are from where Lars is from. Sorry, Lars. I do understand what you say now, but when I first came to Sweden, I couldn't understand people from Skåne. What does the landscape of Japlonia look like? The houses, their festivals. Yeah, I mean, I didn't have festivals, but you know, they would celebrate my birthday, right? Because I was like the queen of Japlonia, obviously. So like, I think that it was like the national day, which would be my birthday, I guess. And the landscape had many different landscapes, but mostly woods and like fields and like pretty sites, not like gray and city gray buildings, you know. It was like a beautiful place where there'd be a lot of cute animals and no, all sorts of animals that were cool, and it wasn't frightening to be there. It was like just an adventure, and it was fun. Kate and Key, the Japlonian twins. Yeah, I was the queen, obviously. Yes. The Japlonian twins. Someday, hundreds of years from now, an archaeologist will find your Japlonian relics. Yeah, well, that's kind of how it is because I grew up in a hoarder house. So, you know those houses on TV where there's like a bunch of junk and that people come and like, it's like rehab. Like they come and they want to do a makeover of your house because it was so messed up. But when I was little, I was less stuff than, an accumulation of 25 years, which is how it is now. So it's not an accumulation of, it wasn't such an accumulation of stuff, but it was still an accumulation of stuff. One of my cringiest things was that I slept on a roll, on a mattress that you could roll up on the floor. And when I had my friends over to my house for my birthday party when I was turning 6, one of the girls was like, "Oh, where do you sleep?" And I was like, "Oh, I sleep there." And she's like, "What? On the floor?" And I was so mad at her, because I was like, "Yeah, well, usually there's the mat there, but I guess my mom rolled it up." And everybody just laughed at me. So that was a traumatic experience. But I really liked sleeping on the floor. It wasn't like on the floor, it was on the mattress, obviously. A lot of people in Japan sleep on like roll-up mattresses. So yeah, I lived in a hoarder house, and so when I go back there, it's kind of like I am doing archaeology. Like I'm digging up old stuff from a long time ago, and I'm like, oh wow, I drew this picture when I was like 5 years old, and then I'm like, oh wow, this dollhouse is something that I used to love, or that kind of thing. So it is kind of like archaeology. I know we are self-classified as half Danish, yeah. I did tell you guys, though, I think, about the unfortunate thing that happened to me with a Danish patient. Because Danish patients don't really articulate their consonants in the way that's like Swedish people do. Swedish people like over-exaggerate their words, according to Danish people. I was like, there was a patient who was having like, he was shaking, he didn't have control of his arms, and he had trouble speaking. But I didn't know if he was having slurred speech because he was Danish. And like all Danish speak to Swedish people sounds like slurred speech, unfortunately. And so, and I was like, do you usually talk like this? And then he'd be like, blah, 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 blah. And I'll be like, what? And then he'll be like, blah, 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 blah. And I'll be like, what? And so I called his wife, because this was during COVID, so we couldn't have people. I called his wife, and his wife was also Danish, so she couldn't. So I was like, is this how he usually talks? And he was like, no. And I was like, oh, okay. He ended up dying because it wasn't a stroke. I sent him to the X-ray, to do an X-ray of his head to see if he had a stroke of his brain, and he ended up having cramps in the CAT scan machine. And what actually had happened is that his pacemaker had led to these shaking and these symptoms, and it wasn't a stroke. And unfortunately, he died because his pacemaker didn't work. So it can be the difference between life and death if you speak Danish at a Swedish hospital. Yeah, I took a dark turn real quick. Sorry. I'll try to erase that from your brains now. Okay. There is an idea of universal grammar in linguistics, which is, I really find it exciting. Yeah, I do. I find that really exciting. Though there are places that have really strange grammar rules. But yeah, universal grammar is like, like, is this something that makes us human, you know? I really like all these ideas. May Young says, I just learned about that this morning. Super cat. Yeah, no, that's interesting, the universal grammar. What a coincidence. I don't know what you mean, Walter White Jr. Maybe, I don't know if I want you to elaborate, to be honest. Mian says, I still sleep on the floor as an adult. Beds are expensive and hard to move on. Like you said, it's normal in Japan. Yeah, no, exactly. It saves you a lot of space, and I've slept on a mattress on the floor when I started talking about MBTI on this channel, and I didn't feel like it was a bad thing. The only thing is that it is more comfortable to sleep on a bed, and also like you can use a storage area underneath the bed, and like you don't have as many bed bugs if you sleep away from the floor. But to me, it's like the bed frame, it doesn't really serve much of a purpose. I do like roll-up mattresses. But you know, in order to have a seemingly normal room, you need to have a bed. Which, you know, maybe I just gave in to the FET antics of SJs. But I bought myself a bed in the end. Yeah, so me young, it is normal in Japan. I really want to go to Japan. I've never been. I want to go and like meet Von Pete there or something. That would be like the best place I could meet him. Because, well, I don't know. I'm a little bit scared of going to the Australian outback. And also, I went to learn about all of his Japanese stories. Blah, 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 blah. What language do you think in since you grew up trilingual? Well, thoughts have no language, I guess. Funny medical story time, yes. I think in English. But I do sometimes think in Swedish now. But when I was growing up, I was thinking in French sometimes. But when I talk to myself, it's usually in English or in Swedish right now. Sometimes I will think to myself in French, but it's rare. Because, you know, as an INFP, I talk to myself like all the time. So, yeah. Yeah, that took a real dark turn real quick. Yep, I forget that. The delivery on He Ended Up Dying caught me off guard. Toby de Vera. Mei Young says, no, it's still a good story, don't be sorry. Yeah, well, that was a story that really kind of affected me. Because I was like, oh, that's the first person that died on my watch because I did something, I missed something, you know? But I don't think that I would have understood it better if it had been, I mean, I don't think that I could have done anything better, actually. I should have had an interpreter in the room with me to help me out. And somebody in his family who knew how he usually talks in order to understand if this was slurred speech or not. And without that, it's really difficult to have a good judgment on the situation. Because I was like, are you having slurred speech or not? And that was actually a pretty important question in this case, because apparently, if the theory of the pacemaker thing was right, the malfunctioning pacemaker, because we never really found out what he died of, because they never did an autopsy on his body. The family that went it. He apparently he did not have slurred speech because like a malfunctioning pacemaker would not be giving slurred speech, like a stroke would, but not that. So he apparently just talked in such a slurred way. And I should have focused more on the shaking, but I did not know. I did what I could. Yeah, you did the best you could with the resources you had. Thank you. Thank you. I did what I could. I couldn't have done differently. but it did make me feel kind of guilty afterwards, like, oh, you know, because when it's your first patient that you lose because of something dumb that you did, then it's a thing. I mean, a lot of other patients died. I also told you guys on this channel a long time ago about the first person that I had to confirm the death on, and then I had to meet the family, and I had to deliver the news. And how old was I then? Like, I was 25 when I had to tell the news. Like, that's a pretty big responsibility to put on somebody. But so I had to do it. And they took it well, thank goodness. But it's not easy, you know. So there are certain things that like truly mark me. But it is kind of a funny story. And I do allow myself to laugh about it because, yeah, Danish people are truly very difficult to understand for a Swedish person. All the Nordic countries, they seem to understand Swedish people very well because they over-articulate everything. But that means that Swedish people can't understand their Norwegian and Danish, especially Danish cousins. Finnish is a completely different language from a completely different root, which is the Finnish and the Hungarian are very similar, apparently, for some weird reason. I don't know why. I don't think that anybody knows. But there is this language, which is the language is split, you know, like the Romance languages, and like somehow Romanian is a Romance language. And not only French, Italian, Spanish, and Portuguese, and Swedish, Danish, and Norwegian. Like, I can understand the written, but sometimes the spoken is difficult. But Finnish is a completely different language. Is it weird that my personality changes slightly when I speak a different language? Sort of a putting on a character. Yes, it's totally normal. I don't really know what my persona is in the different languages, but it is slightly different. I think that I feel more childish when I speak French because I grew up speaking French, but it also feels like more formal in a way because I went to school speaking French. Well, Swedish is more... I learned all of the medical terms in Swedish, so I can't speak medically in English in the same way. Also, my tone of voice is different. I don't know if anybody noticed in like my French versus English, but I tend to speak English with a lower voice and Swedish with a slightly higher voice. And French with a slightly higher voice. I don't really know why. How many times have you had to tell relatives about the death? I guess it happens less often in GP than in the hospital. Yeah, it was mostly during my internship in the south of Sweden. Yeah. I don't know. It seemed like every time that I had a night shift, I would have to confirm somebody is dead or not. But technically, it wasn't my job to tell the people about the death, because I was at the emergency room, and the people who were dying were in the wards. And I hadn't followed the people who were in the wards. So it was actually the job of the doctor who was, like the specialist doctor who was working at the wards, to deliver the news. But because they often weren't there until like 9 o'clock, because older doctors are pretty lax about times, like I would receive the news that the person died at like 2 in the morning, and then I would run and run and run and run all night, and it was the worst time of my life, to be honest. The worst amount of work that I would have to do. And I was pretty stressed. I think that my channel is kind of a testimony of that. If you go back to those videos I did during that period, it wasn't a lot, but I was really run down. And that I think that led to my burnout 2 years later, because I never really recovered from that. But somebody being dead is unfortunately less urgent than somebody who has just come in with the ambulance. So I would wait several hours before I would go up there and confirm the death. Because, I mean, I had more important urgent things to do. I have to save the live people, and confirming death, like, I'll do it at the end of my shift, which is around like 5 in the morning. And so I confirmed many deaths. I think that I did many, not many, but like maybe 12 or something deaths during the time I was at that hospital. But I only had to tell people of the death 3 times, because it was actually the job of the nurses that worked in the ward to tell the family to come. And so they would tell the family to come when they noticed that the patient had died. And I would just be there to confirm it, by placing my stethoscope. So yeah, that's the only time. Also, it was during COVID, so that was the only time it was actually a whole family that I had to tell. And then, but they were really understanding, and they were such a tight-knit family, and I could tell them in a good, dignified way. But then there was a time where I came a little bit too late to confirm the death. So the family was already there. They had already been told. And when I came up there, they had exactly, like, they'd come, and I was like, I need to come and confirm the death. And so I had to pantomime the process, like listening to the heart for 30 seconds and feeling the pulse and looking into the eyes, because I did not have the heart to send them out because they had just come. But maybe I should have sent them out, I don't know. But it was a pretty weird thing, because then they started asking me a ton of questions like, oh, well, how did it die? Like, how was his last moments? And I was basically retelling what the nurse had told me, which felt like really stupid, because just because I'm a doctor, people will listen to me as the final authority, rather than the nurse who has been following this patient throughout the whole week. I had never seen the patient before. I do not know anything about him, except what this nurse told me. So I ended up in a really crazy situation. And and then there was a third one where I had to tell the family, and I had to tell them on the phone, which wasn't obviously great, but it was the only thing I could do. Because the nurse said, no, it's your job. And I was like, really? Is it really my job? I don't feel like I'm comfortable talking to a family for a person that I've never even met before. But yeah, just because I'm a doctor. But as a GP, the specialist doctors, they do have to confirm a lot of deaths. But not me, not yet. Oh yeah, Toby, everybody does this, I think. You're glad that you're not alone. That's good. Lars says Finnish and Hungarian have the same grammar structure, but their pronunciation of letter have nothing in common. Oh, that's interesting. I mean, I've never really heard much Hungarian. I've heard a lot of Finnish because I have a lot of Finnish friends and I've been to Finland, but Hungarian, I don't have many Hungarian friends. I actually met a Hungarian non-binary person, and she was the one who I went to Pride with, and we went to the little cottage with. She was Hungarian, and so she had langos, um, which is their national food, pretty much. So it was really good. I liked it. It's like some kind of fried bread thing. Toby, I don't think it's weird. It happens to many people, perhaps partly because of having different experiences in different languages. Yes, partly. I think so. It's also sometimes how the language is constructed, you know? English has a lot of different words which Swedish doesn't have. And so in English, you can use, there's a broader vocabulary to describe very specific things, which Swedish is very vague about. And Swedish sounds like a more childish language in a way, because it's kind of just like putting Legos together. I guess German is also like putting Legos together, but it's like really simplistic language. My mom always uses this example, which, because she gave birth in Sweden, so that's her experience of Swedish. She found out that, oh no, the word for placenta is moderkaka, which means mother cake, which is hilarious. Because it is the cake. It is like a cake, okay, in how it looks and in the function for the baby. But my mom would always like crack up every time that she heard that word in Swedish, because or the uterus is livmoder, which means life mother, and there are all sorts of these kinds of examples. The reason I have these examples is because my mom has like a fresh view on Swedish, being that she grew up with only one language and then she had to learn these other languages. What's next? I think I'm most annoying in English, so now I don't like to use it, but it's that language I know best. I don't think that you're annoying, Mayung. But maybe you feel that way, I don't know. Toby says that Supercat, having different experiences in different languages makes so much sense. Yes. Because like me having gone to school and being around other children speaking French, and my formative years were in France, I think about it in a very different manner as my medical school years and like my adult years, like having to handle customer service and like all sorts of things in Swedish. Like I've used it in a completely different manner and my experiences are completely different. In English, I've used it mostly to talk to my family and my mom, and also online I use English. And so the way that I speak is different. I don't know if I speak differently when I read the French poems compared to the English version of the poems. I tend to think that I'm a little bit more formal when I read in French, but I don't know. Toby says, no, wait. Mei Young says, I've only ever confirmed one death. It's eerie. Mei Young, do you work in healthcare? Or why would you have to confirm a death? I hope that it wasn't a personal story. Lars says, lagom, take that, English. Haha. Lagom is often with garlic. Schumann, do you know what lagom is? I think that you're thinking about the langos. No, lagom in Swedish means just right, which basically is the Swedish experience. Levi, I don't care about religion, sorry, But I'm glad that Jesus has helped you and that you are sending us love. Mei Young says, it was a family member in hospice care. What, so you had to confirm the death? You had to go there and be like, oh, he's dead now. That seems pretty traumatic. But like, how can you confirm a death if you didn't have a stethoscope? You were just like, oh, this guy like really looks like he's dead. I'm not allowed to just like go to somebody and say, oh, he seems dead. I have to like actually look into the person's eyes and listen to their heartbeats and their breathing and like look inside their mouth and gross stuff. I thought langos, yes. Oh yes, yes. Langos usually has garlic. Lagom is a Swedish word, which Swedish people are extraordinarily proud of for like no reason, but that's life, I guess. Oh wow. Okay. It wasn't formal like that. I just checked pulse and then called professional to do the real confirmation. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Well, I'm sorry about that family member, because it's pretty traumatic the first time that you see somebody who's dead. I've never had to do that in my private life, because when my grandma died, when both of my grandmas died, they were far away and I did not go to the funerals. And also, my grandmother got cremated. So it wasn't like an open casket kind of thing. But a lot of people have seen. Yeah, like I was telling earlier in this live about my ISFJ friend who lived in Italy, in the southern Italy. And his dad was the doctor of the small town that he lived in. And he died of a melanoma. And when my friend was 18, and so that was a year before we met, and that really hurt him. I think he never really got like all the support that he needed, even if he came from an Italian family that was really loving and great. It's kind of like he has to now be the man of the family. He feels like the responsible one, which I think ISFJs are prone to take all the responsibility. But at least I can help him relax a little bit about like he doesn't need to do everything for his family. He can also take some time off to like just be on his own, do what he likes to do. But I remember when we first started anatomy lessons and we had dissections. And I remember that the doctor who was in charge of the bodies was asked us who has seen a dead person before. And I was surprised. There were quite a lot of people, actually. Even if we live in a Western society that never sees dead people. And here he said, not in terms of at a hospital setting. He's talking about relatives, like people that, relatives or strangers on the street, you know, not coupled to your work. How many of you have seen a dead person before? And I thought that there would be a few, but I didn't think that it would be more than half of the people. I always wonder if that was one of, like that dead person that they saw, if that was one of the reasons that they started medical school. We all have trauma, you know? And I think that since so many had seen a dead person before, not just in terms of work, yeah. So we all have a story like that. I had not seen any relatives die, and I haven't seen a dead person on the street or like outside of my professional work. And it is different being in the professional work and seeing it rather than like, I think that I would have I would have a big emotional reaction if I saw a dead person just as a non-professional. Okay, sorry for getting into such a morbid thing. But yes, my first time seeing a dead person was anatomy class dissection. I think it made it easier to see in a real setting later. But Mei Young, what do you work with? Do you work with biology, maybe? Why did you have an anatomy class dissection of a real life person? Because I didn't have that in high school. It was kind of weird because the guy who took care of like the coroner, the guy who takes care of the dead bodies and who treats them, he ended up dying and donating his body to the anatomy class dissection, which that was weird. You work psychology, but you did anatomy in high school. We had a field trip to university. Yeah, I think that my high school, French high school, it's really just rigid stuff. We would never do field trips and fun stuff like that. I wish I had. It would have been a formative thing, but we barely went on trips. We went on a geology trip, which was kind of fun. We went because we lived in the mountains, so we went to the mountains and we hacked at rocks with little hammers. But yeah, so that was a nice field trip. But like the French school system is so academic. It's within like the very small square of like rigid square. What is your take on ADHD? Is it a disease or a misunderstood gift? Okay. I can go on a rant on ADHD, but I'm not going to do so because I've already been live for more than 2 hours. ADHD is not a disease and it is not a misunderstood gift. It is a neurodevelopmental condition, disorder. A disease means that something is sick. Something is pathological. A disorder means that it's unbalanced, which also is kind of not true. A condition means that it's a state of being. And I feel like that is actually the best way to explain it. It's a state of being because it's the way your brain works. And it is not sick. It's a neurodevelopmental, so it's how the brain developed. But it's not a disease, and it's dangerous to call it a gift, though, because the whole way that we diagnose these neurodevelopmental disorders or conditions is by talking about deficits, and deficits means that it's giving you some trouble in your life, and so that's my take on ADHD. It's neither a disease or a misunderstood gift. It's a neurodevelopmental disorder that it's affected. It gives you problems in your life because of the society that we live in that is not geared towards people with ADHD. Geology trips sound fun. Yeah, it was pretty fun. We looked at different kinds of rocks, and we looked about, because the Alps, before it was Alps, it was a big sea. So that's where you'll find fossils and stuff. It was a sea, and then they crashed together and it became a mountain. And you can see the ridges of how the mountain like cracked and like broke and like got all smashed together. and what kinds of rocks that come from that. I actually took a class in geology to keep my student apartment, and I thought it was pretty interesting. It was more interesting in as a university course than as in high school, at least. I know what ADHD is. It is a pain in the ass. Yeah, you're right, Toby. I don't have ADHD or autism diagnosis, but they sent a referral that got sent back, so I don't know. I don't see it as a disease either. I tend to see it as a gift, as people with ADHD seem to be highly creative. It might just be an E. Yeah, but that's the problem a little bit with these diagnoses, is that the only way to know if you have ADHD is by looking at the deficits. So you need to have the deficits in order to have ADHD. So it is kind of a gift in a way, but calling it a gift can lead to some problems, because it might mean to certain people that you are not in need of help to navigate the world. When the whole reason that you got a diagnosis in the first place is because you need help with certain things, and otherwise you wouldn't need to get yourself a diagnosis. But it is a tricky subject, because, well, I don't know. A lot of people don't accept ADHD as like something that can positively impact your life and that kind of thing. Lars Drakblod says, worked as an MT technician at the Department of Pathology in Lund. And once in a while I've had passed through the morgue. First time was interesting, like documentary, because I was curious. The second time my curiosity was full. That was when it hit me. Every open patient on the tables have mourning families at home. And the third time I just broke and wake home. Soft INFP, you know. Yeah. I do have a funny story though about that. Yeah, the morgue is a good place to be, and there are families that, you know, this was part of their family. But I almost got locked into the morgue, because I came late. Typical INFP. I came late to an autopsy class. We had 3 of those classes during my pathology course, and I came late to one of them because I didn't find where the lab was. I did not know where it was, so I was looking around, and I came there late. And so I asked one of the people at the reception, like, oh, well, where should I go? And she said, oh, but through those doors. And so I went through those doors. But then I went into a room, and then somebody turned off the light and closed the door behind me. And I was like, because they hadn't seen me, because I was like behind kind of a shelf, because I had to go through the shelves to get to where this group was. And I got so scared because suddenly I was in the dark. There was a light at the end of the corridor, so I wasn't like completely in the dark. So I knew where I was going, but I was suddenly in the shadows with all of the morgue people and corpses. And I rushed to the other side to where there was another door where I was supposed to go. Yeah. I relate to ADHD symptoms, but I don't see it as a problem. It either seems to be society or its expectations and standards telling you it is a disease. Yes, Alexander, that's true. There is, I mean, if you want to look it up, I don't know if you know about this, but there's the medical view and the social view. Like, that there's the medical view that it is an actual disease, and there's the social view, which is that it's merely our society that is not built for people of different neurotypes. So I'm completely on the same page as you, Alexander. Schumann says, by the way, it says a lot for so far that each of your streams have been longer than the previous one, including this one. Yeah, I've given up on trying to do this within a certain time because, yeah. Side casserole went on for 2 hours and 30 minutes. So my plan is to do it approximately that time, which gives us 10 minutes more. Okay. Why are we always so late, lol? Is it really typical for an INFP to be late? I'm an INFP and I'm always early because I'm afraid to be late. I think that what is very INFP is being afraid to be late. I think it's not the actual lateness. I've gone through periods in my life where I've been late to things and periods in my life where I've been early to things. And it all depends on like how important it is that I'm not late. If it's really important that I'm not late, then I will be there super early. And if it's like I go to all my doctor's appointments super early. But I come to work always late because my boss doesn't really care if I come in there 5 minutes late because my first patient is in 15 minutes. So it's not like I'm like it's hurting any of my patients, you know? So it all depends on like what expectations and what is late or whatever. I think we have a strange perception of time, says Toby. Yes, we do. We have a strange perception of time. I think that that's common to all NFs, I think. Or maybe just intuitive people in general. INFJs have a strange conception of time. It's really interesting. I highly recommend that you talk to an INFJ about time because they're so that's such an interesting topic for them, you know. A lot of INFJs, I think, feel that time is cyclical, and so real life chronological time is not important for them at all. Oh, that's true. It's not super important. I come in as late as I can get away with, lol. Yeah, true. Okay. Well, now we've almost come to 2 hours and 30 minutes. So if you guys have other questions, tell them now. Otherwise, hold your peace. My INFJ friends have this liminal experience of time. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. It's tough being an INFJ, I think. They're not coupled to time. They're like timeless beings. But it does lead to some problems sometimes. They don't have a perception of time. For INFJs, is this more like the movie Tenet, you mean? The movie Tenet? What is that? Thank you for the stream. It was interesting. Thank you, Mei Young. Okay. Well, I guess I'll just say bye to you guys here in the chat. I'll write bye. And during that time, we can say bye. Goodbye. Okay. Bye, Brian. Bye, Mei Young. Bye, Alexandra. Bye, Toby. And Super Cat. Bye. Okay, now let's see how I turn this off.